persecuted. God, we thank you because it could have been us. God, we thank you that you give us the spirit of empathy, not sympathy. We give you the glory. We give you the honor. We thank you for all those who have shown up today. We thank you for all those who are on their way, God. We ask that you give them traveling grace in your mercies. In Jesus Christ's name, we continue to pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, dear sir. Just a couple of ground rules, family. To any of our guests that are here, first of all, I want to thank each and every last one of you. And procedures. We found it very, very important as we continue to move forward, but we can't do it without your cooperation. So we're very grateful for that. All right. We want to make an announcement to the press first, because we know that you have your job to do. And as you have your job to do, we don't want to confuse the fact that we also have a job to do that goes beyond a 2-minute soundbite. And we want to make it crystal clear that this press conference is exactly what it's about as it was stated in our press release. So if you have a particular angle that you're personally covering, you're pressed. You cover that angle. The first thing we want to clarify is that we scheduled this press conference before our brother in Minneapolis was killed. It was scheduled before that. And we want to be crystal clear that this gathering, this solidarity that you see before you right now is not something that just jumped or popped out of the sky. Prayerfully, press, when we do mention the fact that we have 2 primary solution points we want to bring forward, that you find it some way proper to cover in your stories. So I just want to be clear, and I'm going to start off just sharing some things that are off of the press release so that we're clear. And then the very first person that I'm going to bring up after that will be our beloved sister, our sister Sabrina Fulton. And I also want to say, for all the important people in the room, I bow to you all. Please notice the distinction. I bow to you all. We didn't come here because of a political agenda. We didn't call this for that. So we thank you for showing up. But please respect the fact that everyone in this room is an important person. You know, when we do some of our Circle of Brotherhood trainings, we have an expression that says there are no big I's or little U's. And so we can make sure today that we also behold to that. That in this room right now, there are no big I's or little U's. Humble yourself, family. Humble yourself. Because we believe that we could be used to cause a paradigm shift all across this country. So in this press release, family, it says it's a call to action dealing with the racial stereotypes and abuse of power that are still costing black men and women the ultimate price. And it says no more business as usual. Some of you all may be familiar with the Twilight Zone. You know, there's a scene in one of those episodes where an individual can't get out of the cycle and keeps repeating over and over and over and over again the same cycle and can't get out of it. If God has blessed us to be not only men and women of courage, but if he's blessed us to be men and women of sound mind, some of us have to take responsibility for looking past, going through that same repetitive cycle. We initially called this press conference when here in Miami-Dade, a Latino mother kills her son and points the direction to a black man. I want you to think about the ramifications about what could have happened. You know, I do want to take a moment here to thank Director Ramirez. You know, as Brother Leroy and myself, we were talking. We said there have been more than 2 crimes committed. It wasn't the attempted murder and the murder. Sure enough, we see a news story, and he says a 3rd crime has been committed. We salute you for that, my brother. We salute you for that. I want to thank Chief Colina. We didn't ask him to make a statement, but he came out ahead of investigations, and he saw fit to make a statement. And so we want to be clear that that was the beginning impetus that brought us here. In the midst of that, a woman in New York City, when her brother asked her to put her dog on a leash, she calls policing authorities and saying she's being attacked again by a black man. Isolated incidences? And maybe not. And then here we find ourselves again, from Georgia to Indiana to Kentucky and Minneapolis, all in the same scope. Here we are again. So we come to you today. I don't know what any of these individuals are going to share. They have carte blanche to share what they like to share. But I want to remind you all, you all know how the press is, right? You know they'll listen to you for an hour and take 30 seconds of what you said. And it might not be the 30 seconds that you wanted them to take. So I'm asking us to please respect time. If you can make your main point in 2 minutes, I learned that from our county. They can't get mad at us for that one, can they? Make your main point in 2 minutes. I'm not holding Ms. Fulton to that. If you got a problem with that, that's on you. That ain't on me. She can say whatever she want to say and take the time to do whatever she need to say or do. If you got a problem with that, then you need to check yourself. And so with that being said and shared, to our reporters, someone may say something here today that may stimulate some thoughts and some questions. Feel free to do 2 things. You know, and we definitely want to respect the time of those who run our city and run our county. So if, for example, if the mayor says something and it sparks a question, feel free after the mayor's remarks to go and see the mayor and follow up and to do those things with any of these distinguished people that are here, family. Feel free to do that. We just ask that you don't disrespect our press conference, because everything that's going to be said today, from A to Z, is important. So if you came for just one person, maybe you didn't read the press release. So with that being said and shared, we'll give our action items at the end of the statements on why this is important. So I want to bring up first our beloved sister. She's a queen to so many mothers. For her to carry the burden of loss that she carries and still to take a role in the same manner of vein as if it happens to anyone else's child, we're blessed with a hero and a shero in our midst, our beloved sister, Ms. Sabrina Fulton.
I don't know if you guys can hear me with this mask on.
And you can feel
Can you
free,
hear me?
if you need to, you can do that. We got 6 feet.
Okay. so much to talk about, so much to share with you, because I come to you as a parent who has lost a child to senseless gun violence. And every time I see the news and I see somebody that's shot and killed, I see somebody that is unarmed, I see our little black and brown boys and some of our young ladies being shot and killed, of course it reminds me of my son. Of course it does. This is something I carry every day. And I always ask myself about those parents and how they are going to withstand what they're about to face. Because it's difficult. I'm 8 years in, and it still hurts. So unless you have lost a child, you really don't understand the pain, but I'm glad you support and understand what's going on now. If you have a heart that's beating in your body, you have to know that that's somebody's child. And you have to understand, how would you feel if it was your child? A lot of times we need to put ourselves in other people's position. Even if you're not going through that, even if you're not being racially profiled and discriminated on, you need to think about somebody else's child. How would you feel if somebody had their knee on your neck? How would you feel if you were jogging in your community and somebody chased you down with shotguns? How would you feel? We all need to search our hearts and think about things like that. And we need to stop being so swift to move to the next trauma, to the next tragedy. These are not stories for us. This is not a story that I live, because there's no ending. I have to carry this the rest of my life. And I try to do everything to make my son proud, the one that's in heaven and the one that's here on earth. So I try to live my life so they'll be proud of their mom. But what's happening now has to stop. And we've said so many times, enough is enough. But other people, we need to speak with other people. Because guess what? Had George Floyd been a dog, that man would have been in jail. I'm going to say that again. If he had been a dog, that police officer would be in jail. Because we have people that put more respect and value in an animal than they do in a human being. We have to search our hearts. And we can't just like something on social media. We can't just repost something. We can't just say it's sad and put a sad face. We got to get active. We have to participate and get involved in these organizations. Don't create your own. It's enough out there. We have to participate. We have to donate. We have to link up with these organizations that mean the same thing and are trying to fight for the same things that you are fighting for. It's time for us to stop sitting down, and it's time for us to stand up. We got to stand up. We can't just wait until it happens to us. We can't just wait until our son, our brother, our father is killed. We have to do something now. And to the police officers that's in there, I don't have a thing to say bad about you all. And I've said this before, my father, I lived in a house with a gun. I'm not afraid of guns. He retired from the City of Miami Police Department. So I don't have anything against police officers. I do have something against bad officers. And I know it's difficult for you all. You don't have to agree with me. I know that when you see bad things happening, that you can't say anything. So the police department needs to create that, because that's a problem. If you got good officers and you got bad officers, and the good officers see the bad officers doing bad things, it has to be a way for them to be able to express that to someone. That's the problem. When that little boy, Alejandro, mother drowned him, it didn't matter what color skin he was. We have to get away from that. We have to get away from trying to figure out if the person is black or white, what difference it makes. It's a human being. We have to search our hearts, and we have to get more involved. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for your support. Just know that everybody's life matters. We all matter.
God bless you, dear sis. God bless you. The next person I'm going to bring up, I want to speak very clearly why I'm bringing him up next. In case some of you all don't know, we're in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. And it would be robbery or disrespectful for us to have the man who's responsible for running the county in our midst during the world pandemic and not have him share so he can get back to running our county. And so out of that respect, and I must say this, see, one of the beautiful things about the Circle of Brotherhood, we already have established relationships. We don't have to pretend here in the city of Miami and Miami-Dade like we're just coming together. And we respect everything that the mayor has done during this pandemic, and we also respect his presence in being here today. So I'd like to bring up at this time the mayor of Miami-Dade County, our mayor, Carlos Jimenez.
I promise it's 2 minutes because it's written down. So let me say that Ms. Fulton, I agree with everything that you said. It's not about black and white. It's about lives, and every life matters. Every life matters, and we should have respect for the dignity of human life. And I'm glad to be here today with the Circle of Brotherhood to condemn racism, violence, and the horrific death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and also the false accusations here in our own community. 4 officers have been fired in that case, but they have not been charged for killing Mr. Floyd, and that's very, very troubling to me. Anyone who's watched the videos understands something went terribly wrong. Something wasn't right. 1 officer put his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9 minutes while 3 other officers stood and watched. That's really appalling. Let me be clear, justice must be done, but rioting and looting accomplishes nothing, only more pain and suffering for a community. Unfortunately, after peaceful protests in Minneapolis, they have turned violent, and last night a police station was burned down. Their police station was burned down. The community's police station was burned down. That does not honor the memory of George Floyd, and certainly does not make things any better for Mr. Floyd's grieving family, who have asked for the violence to stop, and we should honor that. I pray for a peaceful end to this situation in Minneapolis. I also want to stress that here in Miami-Dade County, we have been doing all we can to train our officers to treat all communities with the respect that they deserve. We may not be able to cleanse the sin of racism that can be buried deep in the hearts of some people, but we can take action when we see it, and we do. I, along with Deputy Mayor Maurice Kemp, Police Director Freddie Ramirez, and I know that I have Commissioner Esteban Bovo behind me, we have zero tolerance for a culture of racism in our police department or in any county office. Zero. The past 8 years, we have worked with our Board of County Commissioners to set policies that seek justice for all. Our officers must wear body cameras to capture any misbehavior on their part and on the part of the person being arrested. Those cameras are as much about protecting our community as they are about protecting the vast majority of our good officers who sometimes are falsely accused. The camera will show it. Our officers receive crisis intervention training for dealing with individuals in crisis or suffering from mental illness, one of the few departments in the nation that does. Our officers also are trained to challenge themselves and to spot bias. We institute training for fair and impartial policing, and we instituted that back in 2016. I'm also glad to see our Director of Corrections, Director, is he here? Nope, he's not here. Okay, I thought he was here. Where? Director of Corrections, Daniel Jr., he's right here. Didn't recognize you with the mask. You know, even well-intentioned people have biases. And if we deny that, we're just fooling ourselves, all right? We need to recognize it. Because, as training points out, policing based on stereotypes it's ineffective, it's unsafe, but mostly it's unjust. We also have for many years, run a Citizens Police Academy, 16-week program enables participants to better understand police training, procedures, philosophy, so that we can work together to keep our communities safe. And we have an outreach for teenagers that seek to combat misperceptions about the police. So I'm here today to condemn racial stereotypes, but also to condemn violence as a way to seek justice. We have been working closely with the Circle of Brotherhood for many years to combat racism and to help train our youth and our ex-felons to become productive members of our community. I want to thank the Circle of Brotherhood for all they do each and every day to help our communities in need. And I pledge that our administration won't stop trying to combat racial stereotypes and the abuse of power. And as I was sitting here, I was reminded of myself 30 years ago, around this time, 30 years ago. Actually, it was after the McDuffie incident, the riots, and I was actually with the police department. I was a firefighter, but I was with the Miami Police Department as a SWAT medic. And I remember looking back at our city, and there were 10 major fires going on in that city. And there I pledged, along with the other folks that were with me, that this should never happen again. We have come a long way in this community. We have, but we have a long way to go. And so again, thank you for allowing me to participate in your news conference today. I want to thank all the men, the fine men and women of the Miami-Dade and other police departments in our great community that are here. The vast majority are good, honest people. They're your neighbors. They're our friends. They're here to protect us. But every once in a while, somebody does something that they shouldn't, and that needs to be brought to justice, just like what happened in Minneapolis. And so, I leave you with that. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
So, the remarks you just heard how's the disclaimer go? Are some of the remarks of the mayor of Miami-Dade County, and don't necessarily represent the views of all those who are established here today. And why do I take the time to say that? Because everyone in this room has a right to share according to what you see. And we might not always see eye to eye, but I think we know we all want the same thing. The sister I'm going to bring up next, she doesn't know she's coming up next. It's part of my style sometimes. Some of y'all get y'all like that, don't you? But she has a wealth of experience nationally with her work with the ACLU, and just the work that she has done in the community to deal with issues of justice. I have no idea what she's going to share with her 2 minutes, but we want to thank her for being with us today. Our beloved sister, Melvin Pearson, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Melvin Pearson. I am an attorney with a background as a homicide prosecutor here in Miami-Dade County, as well as being the former deputy director of the ACLU of Florida. I am here to lend my voice, not just as a criminal justice practitioner and a civil rights attorney, but as an impacted person. Because make no mistake, every person of color in this country who has to watch these images and has to see it in their social media feeds and has to deal with this as their reality and wonder if they or their loved ones or their friends or their neighbors may be next, they're impacted. The pain and the trauma that many people of color are feeling right now may be unfathomable to our allies, but it's real. The sad statistic in this country is that African American men are almost 3 times as likely to die from police violence as opposed to their white counterparts. Close to 3 times as likely. That's problematic. From the prosecution side, there needs to be accountability. The community needs to see it. In our county's history, in the past 27 years, there has not been a prosecution of a police officer for a death in the line of duty, for the death of a civilian in the line of duty. Not one in the last 27 years. The community sees that. The community is troubled. Also, when we look at the events that occurred around the death of young Alejandro Ripley, and we look at the events that occurred in Central Park, it is clear that from a legislative perspective, we need to strengthen the laws to hold people accountable who use 911 as a weapon against people of color. So the good news is, these are things that can be fixed, but it will take partnership. It will take all of the stakeholders working hand in hand with the community to make the changes needed. We need to have continuous de-escalation training. We need to have continuous implicit bias training, not just once a year, continuous, because it has to be ingrained in second nature to always pause, stop yourself, check yourself for bias before acting, because lives hang in the balance. We need to rebuild the trust through community policing, where the officers are back out of their cars and getting to know the communities that they serve. Because we need to rebuild that trust. We need our leaders to make bold moves that will show that all the people in our great county, all the people in our county will be treated equally. Because I'm going to leave you with 2 quotes from Dr. King. The first one to the mayor's comments. Riots are the language of the unheard. Riots are the language of the unheard, not condoning, just explaining. And Dr. King also said, we either live together as brothers and sisters, as people, or we perish as fools. So our marching orders are to listen and to act. Thank you.
Before I bring up some of our leading, I want to say police/community officials, because some of them have demonstrated just that. I want to bring up one more sister, because there's something that gets lost in translation, as the oldest man or woman in this room can bear witness to how long we have been living this current nightmare. Somebody missed that. To how long we have been living this current nightmare. We forget often the effect that it has on our children, on our little black boys and our little black girls, and our little white boys and white girls who think that they may have a sense of privilege. But what is the effect of what's going on, the climate raised here in Miami-Dade because of the false accusations, and because of the climate across the country? Think about the effects of our children. So, our beloved sister who runs the Miami Children's Initiative, I'd like her to come up at this time, Ms. Natasha Daniels.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Latasha Daniels, President and CEO of the Miami Children's Initiative, and I thank you, Brother Lyle, and I thank you, my brothers, for this opportunity. I want you to picture, if you will, a jolly old cop, maybe in his, the twilight of his years. He's thinking about retiring. Imagine him in Liberty City. Imagine him doing community policing, getting out in PSU, in Lincoln Field. and he sees a 4-year-old, 5-year-old child, and he walks over to that child and simply says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Can you imagine that 4 or 5-year-old child with his hands lifted out of an automatic and default response and just simply saying, "I want to be alive"? I stand to you today just to simply say that the health of any nation, if you want to monitor what that is how it handles its children and its most vulnerable citizens. And I want you to know today, as our company, our organization is embedded right here in Liberty City, I want you to know that the tone and tenor of our babies is fear today. When they look on their social media feeds and when they look on television and see that the people, their uncles, their brothers, their fathers, that look like them and feel like them are being mishandled and mistreated, it then affects the psychological and emotional component of their life to say, what's the purpose of my life? And so today I stand simply to say that through collaboration and continued community policing, as we have with the Key Biscayne Foundation, as we have with Miami-Dade County, we thank you for what you're doing, but as we must continue to move forward in making sure that racial and economic profiling is completely eradicated. That just because of the color of our skin, a child should not feel that I'm destined to die just because I made a mistake. But and that I have an opportunity, if I make a mistake, to have my day in court. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for this great day.
God bless you, my sis. God bless you. Press, you being patient? Training our press too, family. We got to do that as well too. You know, the next set of voices you're going to hear are very, very important. And I'm going to lower this as I get ready to bring them up, because this is very, very important. See, one of our calls to action today is to make sure that whenever these type of injustices take place anywhere, that those of us that have a conscience raise our voice. It's not just the duty of black men to speak up for the safety and security of black men and injustices. It's the duty for all moral, abiding citizens of this planet. And with that being said, I want to bring up a brother right now, and I confidently call him a brother. You know, because our work together didn't start because he was a police officer and I was an activist. His work started because of the care and the love for a community and the disrespect of others toward that community. No offense to any of the other police directors and chiefs in here, but in experience, he might have been around the longest. You know, and I want to bring him up at this opportunity. Again, I don't know what he's going to say or share, but I must say, for the very first time, as we relive this nightmare, I'm seeing more and more dissenting voices come from police officers. And that is a major, major reflection on not only what's needed across this country, but at the heart and the minds of men and women who are here in Miami-Dade. All the way from across the bridge in Key Biscayne, our beloved brother, Chief Press.
Good afternoon. I don't have notes. I wasn't expecting to talk here. He just kind of threw me under the bus. That's my job. But Brother Lyle is right. We have, through the Chief Press Foundation, the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, been working in Liberty City for the past 15 years. And before that, as a Miami Beach police officer, I worked in the community. And just like the mayor said, I was out there 30 years ago when we were all out there. And then the riot after that, and then the one after that. And if you had a heart, you were affected. if you couldn't feel the pain that a community was going through and you couldn't see it in their faces like I saw it, and see hate and see disdain and see somebody looking at me without knowing who I am, what I am, how I am, all they saw was this badge, this gun, and I must represent the wrong thing. So I promised myself, as the mayor did, that if I ever got an opportunity to change that conversation, I would. And when I came here to Liberty City and met Brother Lyle for the first time, it was magical. It was MCI at its infancy. He was wondering what the hell a cop from Key Biscayne was doing in Liberty City. And we talked, and we talked as men, and we talked as equals. And I came to respect this man and what he does more than just about anybody else. And the reason I do that is because what he does with honor, he does with purpose, and he does it for the right reason. He doesn't do it to stand in front of the press. Most of the events that we had, and we've had events for years where we've taken care of the young people and the seniors here in Liberty City, they don't have media. Media doesn't show up for those things. And guess what? We do it anyway. We do it because it comes from our hearts and our souls. What happened in Minneapolis is as horrible a sight as any human being should see. And it shouldn't matter if it disturbs you as a civilian or it disturbs me as a cop. It should matter that it disturbs us all as human beings. That something was horribly wrong there, and there has to be some type of justice that comes out of this. And here in Dade County, through the Miami-Dade Chiefs, and I see Chief Jariga and Chief Kalina and Chief Director Ramirez, there is change in our policing here. We train and we work with the Circle of Brotherhood. I've seen things happen here that I've never seen anywhere else in the U.S. And so I take pride in the fact that we started this. We do it not because we had to, not because the mayor mandated us to, not because the world told us this is what we had to do. We do it because we feel we can make South Florida, Miami, the shining star of how law enforcement learns from its mistakes and how we grow as a true profession, not as a job, but as a true profession. So that when I walk down the streets of Liberty City, which I do often, and people come out of their house and say, "Hey, Chief Press," it's the greatest feeling in the world because there's trust, there's hope, there's belief. And I hope we all get something out of this today because that's what it comes down to. God bless you all. Thank you.
And so before you hear from these next three gentlemen, I want to say this to the community. Here's one of our calls to action. If someone stepped on your toe, would your toe tell you that someone stepped on it? Or would your mind tell you that someone stepped on it? The toe is a part of the body. And when any part of your body is affected or afflicted with pain, frustration, and injustice, then the whole body should feel it. So here's our call to action for the community today. Our call to action is this. We've been disconnected from our body. And so we don't act like, until now, that a wrong in Minneapolis is a wrong in Miami-Dade County. We don't want these artificial boundaries to be set up. See, and don't get it lost and twisted. This preference is not just about our working relationship with the police department. It's about a call for justice. And please make sure that that gets shared. It's about our community being respected to the point where those involved from whatever angle you may see also respect the fact that justice will be served. The flames you see burning in Minneapolis right now today, those flames were already smoldering on the inside of hearts and men who had callously never seen justice in these issues. So don't wait till the